John W. Whitehead gained international renown as a result of his role as co-counsel in Paula Jones' sexual harassment case. Mr. Whitehead is an attorney and author who has written, debated, and practiced widely in the area of constitutional law and human rights. Whitehead's concern for the persecuted and oppressed led him in 1982 to establish the Rutherford Institute, a non-profit civil liberties and human rights organization whose international headquarters are located in Charlottesville, Virginia. And he joins us now on John Bowne Politics. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Whitehead.
Hey, thanks for having me on, sir.
Hey, I recently read your article, Dial T for Tyranny. Great title, by the way. And you use the alphabet as a way to get your point across, that there are more ways than we can count where our civil liberties are being extinguished in broad daylight. It's a poignant read. How did you conceive this idea?
Well, I've been writing on this. Like I say, I have books out there. My latest book is Battlefield America: The War on the American People. I've been writing. I do a weekly commentary. I'm trying to wake people up because, if the United States is like a train, we've almost reached the end of the line. We're very, very close to moving into a totalitarian society. We're already in a total surveillance state, by the way. I mean, there is no privacy anymore. I mean, people think they can go hide in the woods, but if you have any kind of electrical gadget, from a cell phone to a laptop, you're being watched and listened to. Even your television sets now, everything around you is picking up what you're doing. So you have all the police actions we're seeing happening across the country, 80,000 SWAT team raids in America on an annual basis, up from several thousand in the 1980s, where police are going through doors in the middle of the night. 80% of those SWAT team raids are on Premier Warrant Service now, where a policeman used to show up and knock on your door. We have zipped, I'd say since 9/11, we have zipped into a totalitarian state. We're already there. I mean, we may curse about countries like China or Russia and say what we want to say about them, but what's happening here is very, very, very similar. It's a worldwide phenomenon right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, what really got me interested was it was so poignant because I had just done a report on Bill Gates and Earth Now announcing that they will be launching 500 satellites into space to watch every square inch of Earth. And
yes.
In essence, after going through the alphabet,
Google already does a lot of that, by the way.
Right. Doesn't this officially end our right to privacy? I mean, it just does not exist.
Well, when you have the NSA downloading over 1 billion phone calls per day of American citizens, almost 2 billion of our emails are downloaded. Text messages, by the way, downloaded. Your Facebook page, I mean, Zuckerberg was just before Congress. They're just giving information away to the government. Amazon built, several years ago now, it built a $600 million intelligence cloud for all the 17 intelligence agencies. So all these so-called private agencies are not really private. They're working hand-in-hand with the government. They're watching you. They're watching you for so-called hate speech. And hate speech is basically, in the eyes of the government, anybody that opposes the government. And they're watching very, very carefully what we do, how we think. How many people know this? Most people aren't awake. The Department of Homeland Security is doing threat assessments on every home in America. The threat assessment goes from green to red. There's 5 different colors. If you run a stop sign or whatever, your threat assessment goes up. If you own a firearm, it probably shoots to red, even if it's a legal firearm and you're just a hunter. Which means if that policeman shows up at your door and is very agitated, that's because he has your threat assessment on his electronic gadgets. So we're there, folks. You may not think it, but here's the thing I keep emphasizing with people. I'm 40 years into doing this. I've been studying the government for many, many years. When these things happen, when we see when they come out and admit, yeah, we're doing this, we're collecting this, and whatever. They've been doing it for years. They only tell you after it's a done deal. Then they let it out a little bit at a time. The media covers it, and people go, oh, okay, I see. And most people just fall in line because they think they're being educated instead of indoctrinated.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and the consortium...
It works really well.
Oh yeah, sure it does. And well,
and the right wing
everyone's
and the
so
left
busy.
wing media play along with it. They all play along with it. So
Everyone's so busy. In the beginning of your article, you nail that point down, is that everyone's so busy basically with their lives that they're allowing this to roll right over them, and we're there.
we're there.
We're there. 10 years ago, these things that you mentioned in your article, go through a few of them here. A is for the American police state. B is for the Bill of Rights, which is really battered. C is for civil asset forfeiture, which is a total nightmare. D is for drones. E is for electronic concentration camp, which we all live under. Fusion centers, grenade launchers, global police, hollow point bullets, Internet of Things, jailing for profit, Kentucky versus King, which I wasn't familiar with until this article, which is
Well, that's the case of the Supreme Court rule, an 8-1 decision that if the police show up at the wrong door, but they think you might be doing something illegal, they can go through your door anyway. They don't have to have a warrant. And Justice Ginsburg, by the way, was the only dissenting justice. She said this is the end of the Fourth Amendment.
It's gone.
Again, how many people know what the Fourth Amendment's about? I talk to policemen who don't even know what it's about. It says that before the government enters your home or does surveillance or any of those things on you, they got to have some evidence of criminal activity or probable cause to do it. That just does away with the Fourth Amendment.
I think a lot of people think the Fourth Amendment has to do with your home and what's in your home, but it clearly states the right of the people to be secure in their persons.
And papers, yes. Yeah. Which today would be what you do on the Internet. But when you have the NSA downloading 2 billion emails a day and over 1 billion phone calls, watching us, collecting our information, I mean, I know I have a file. Everybody has a file. Like I said, when the Department of Homeland Security, which came into being after 9/11, is doing threat assessments on every home in America so that when that cop shows up at your door, he'll know who you are and what you have and what you think. And they'll know exactly what you think. And we found out here recently that Facebook is not only relying on the information you do on Facebook, they're tracking you, whatever you do on other media sources or whatever, so they can sell you information. The problem is, and I see this as a real danger, the government doesn't view us as human beings anymore. They view us as data bits, basically. We're a data to be sold something, and they work hand in hand with the big corporations like Amazon, Facebook. Google, by the way, admits they work with the NSA. They admit it. They get paid to do it. So the so-called corporate state it now exists. It's the corporations connected to the government. They work hand in hand.
And what's over the corporate state? Who's pushing all those buttons?
Well, again, there's the deep state that we talked. I was one of the first people to write on that, by the way.
Right.
It was out of that FBI memo. It said there's a group called the Seventh Floor Group, which basically makes the key decisions in government. The so-called deep state, and I would bet. We don't know exactly the name here, but it's government officials with large corporate entities and some of the big names out there in the world that are pushing agendas. So,
like the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group.
Yeah, whoever's out there running the show. So we know. I mean, what did Jimmy Carter say a year and a half ago? He says we're ruled by an oligarchy. Mm-hmm. He admitted it in an interview.
Yeah.
And then Princeton University did a study of 20 years of laws and policies passed in Washington, D.C. Princeton University, and this is a quote, they said, we live in an oligarchy run by a moneyed elite. This is Princeton University.
And we're headed towards a complete technocracy. I mean, we're seeing Amazon and Facebook. And MarketWatch just reported that the UK-based House of Commons Library said this month that if current trends continue, the richest 1% will control nearly 66% of the world's money by 2030. Based on 6% annual growth in wealth, they would hold assets worth approximately $305 trillion, up from $140 trillion today.
Well, listen, I've worked in D.C. for 40 years. It's run by money. Whoever has the money. I mean, your local congressman, some spend up to 2 days a week sometimes at phone banks raising money for the next campaign. So it's money. Money runs the show, And again, they want your money. When you pay your taxes for whatever you're getting, I mean, you have no control over that. I mean, who votes for this stuff?
Right.
Did we vote for an income tax?
No. No.
They made us pay an income tax.
Yeah, 1913.
So most of the stuff that's happening to America, you think you're free. Well, how free are you when everything you do, there's no voting on it? Did you vote to set up SWAT teams?
Right. No.
To go racing around the country? All the things. Did you vote to bomb Syria?
Right.
That's a job that supposedly Congress is supposed to do, but presidents now just bomb. Obama, when he was in office, had his Kill Tuesdays where he would decide who to kill next with a drone. So it's the so-called government in D.C. is totally out of control. There's no control over it. And what I emphasize in my book, especially Battlefield America, is that if you want to do anything, you better get your local government under control. You better get down to that local office and make sure you can turn some of these things around. You can send those tanks back that local police have today, or grenade launchers. And some of them are running around with hollow point bullets, by the way, that the Department of Homeland Security has specially made for their federal agencies. So, I mean, you have 120,000 federal agents now running around this country, probably loaded with hollow point bullets. You know what hollow point bullets do? They expand on contact. If it hits you on the arm, it'll blow your arm off. What are they running around with hollow point bullets for?
Because they can.
What are they expecting is going to happen, huh?
Well,
what are they up against?
I think the American people we're entering a new phase. We're entering Civil War territory. We're entering revolutionary territory.
Yeah.
We're getting right up to the edge of it, and on top of that, we've got the immigration debacle that's happening with our immigration laws and the United Nations replacement migration program that's pushing into Europe and pushing into the United States. We've got diseases coming over the borders. Scabies, for instance, is up 3,000% in the United States since 2014.
Yeah.
Just as an example, we have 25,000 Americans every year are killed by illegal aliens, whether it's drunk driving or they're murdered. We have a rape epidemic of children on the East Coast, at the very least, by illegal aliens. And it's not about people whining and being triggered about immigration or immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants. It's the fact that our laws have been bypassed, as Ken Paxton here in Texas had just said about the DACA reform, is that the executive office under Obama went with his preference, and we can't go by preference against the laws of the land. So we have entered dangerous territory.
Oh, we're moving into what George H.W. Bush slipped out of his mouth, the New World Order. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're moving in that direction. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you go to your large cities and look around. I mean, you have every nation represented walking down the street. I challenge people to go to New York City and sit in a restaurant and look around you. Things have changed. Yes, we're moving into a global government, in my opinion. Yes, and the NSA works all over. They have their Five Eyes program. They have 5 major bases in England, New Zealand, around the world, Australia. They're working around the globe. They do global tracking now, and they feed it to other countries when they're looking for a so-called extremist.
Yeah, and I'm sure
which could be me or you.
Right, and I'm sure we're on that list. You mentioned that list in this alphabet from hell, basically. The main core.
Main core, Main core is the database. They admit they have it. As of 2008, there were some 8 million Americans in this main core database that would be rounded up in times of emergency. And here's another thing, and I've written on this. The Pentagon, about 6 months ago, released a video. I don't know if you saw it, but it's predicting by 2030. It's very well done. It was done by a Hollywood director who's anonymous. But it looks like something Spielberg or some director like that would put together. But it's predicting by 2030 this country's going to break down economically and otherwise in large cities, and they're going to have to impose martial law. They're predicting that. It's a well-done video. You should watch it.
Do you know the name of that? You know the name of that video offhand? Is it?
I don't know. I've done it's the Pentagon's video. I did a vodcast on. People can go on our website and pick it up.
Okay, great.
But it's predicting by 2030 the country's going to break down. And as I look at the economy now, I see stores closing. I see malls shutting down. Kids are going to law school and they can't get jobs. They're getting master's degrees and they're working in shoe stores. I mean, something's happening to the country.
67%.
And the so-called government is not protecting us from it.
Oh, it's so-called. Yeah, they're all sycophants for the New World Order, for the globalists. But 67% of eighth graders can't pass math in the United States. 60% can't pass a reading course.
Yep.
We're reaching a point also with the millennials who are completely devoid of any assimilation, any values, any traditions of this country. They're triggered by our very values.
Listen, I teach students all year long. I mean, I had 20 students last summer, law students, in my summer program, and not one to give me the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. They didn't even know. And you see all these things now where the students are shouting down speakers. 44%, according to a major poll, that now if they figure if you have hate speech, they have a right to shout you down, even if they want to use violence. They believe that. So things like free speech, the right to be free of the government rushing your home, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, all those key amendments, they're not being taught in the schools anymore, those things. So how do you know if your freedom is being drained if you don't know what your freedoms are in the first place? So they're not being taught in the public education system, any of those.
Well, and
it's shocking.
People have argued that Facebook lately, that in the past couple of days, they've announced that they're going to use 10,000 people plus AI to basically take news off of Facebook, downvote it, what have you, so that, quote, fake news, unquote, basically alternative news, facts that they don't want people to know, can be downvoted. Now, people would argue, well, it's a private business. They can do with their business what they want. But aren't they actually exploiting?
They work for the government.
They're exploiting our First Amendment.
Yeah.
In order to make a profit. So that's a very slippery slope, I would imagine.
It's a very slippery slope, but they work with the government. I don't think any of these governments are being private, in my opinion.
Sure.
You can call them private, but when they're getting $600 million to build intelligence clouds, they're not really so.
And Amazon
and they have access to the intelligence cloud.
Right.
We don't. They do.
Right.
So these people cozy up to power. They pretend they're out there doing us a favor, but again, I'm saying people realize the government and these major corporations that work with the government, they see us as data bits, not as people. Something to be manipulated, used, and sold. They want your money. If you want a good analogy, there's that great John Carpenter film, They Live. If you haven't seen that movie, I'm encouraging people to see it. It's true. There's an evil force that lives inside the government, and it's alive and well. And we've allowed it to be alive and well because we're sitting on our butts. Some kids today are looking at screen devices up to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
So if you're watching, you're not doing. There's a great book by a fellow named Neil Postman called Amusing Ourselves to Death, which I start off this commentary quote from him. Mm-hmm. Big Brother's not watching us. We're watching Big Brother, and we're liking it.
Right.
It's scary. It's come around. Again, I use the word electronic concentration camp. That's exactly what we're in right now. We're in an electronic concentration camp.
Well, and our forefathers, they warned us this day was going to come, too.
Oh, yeah.
And here it is.
Eternal vigilance, Thomas Jefferson said. That's the only thing that keeps freedom alive. And what did James Madison, who wrote our Bill of Rights, say? We ought to mistrust all those in power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people just shrug their shoulders and go on as long as they have their cell phone.
Yeah.
If they walk across the street staring at it and could get hit. I've seen a number of people do that.
And a new study.
We've become addicted to them, and they know that.
Or they fall into a fountain. And a new study is showing that the millennial generation, the younger generation, is lonelier than the elderly generation.
Yeah,
because
they're losing human connections. Yes,
exactly.
That's another thing. The family in this country, the corporations and the government doesn't like families. Families are intermediary institutions. In other words, they broker power. They will delimit power. But if you do away with families and their power, which they've done in this country, all you have is the government and the individual. Mm-hmm. And we've gone down the road, folks. We're there, unfortunately. But I think there's some things we can do. And like I say, get involved locally. The 10th Amendment allows local institutions to nullify acts of the federal government. You can nullify them. You can send back all the cop equipment they're getting. You can stop the NDAA from being used if people know what the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the president, if he thinks you're an extremist, you can be rounded up and taken to a detention camp, not even see your lawyer or your family.
Thank you, Obama.
That's a law in this country. Yeah. You can nullify that. But see, what I tell people is get educated. Education precedes action. You're not going to get educated watching CNN or any of the other, networks. It doesn't work. They're not going to educate you.
Yeah, the 9th and the 10th Amendment, they have a lot of power, and I think they put them in there because they knew this day was coming. And it's really it's the last...
They faced it in their day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the last weapon
they wanted to get rid of their British rulers, and they did. And before long, and Thomas Jefferson, by the way, before he died, was lamenting the fact that he saw the people around him already melting away, not concerned about freedom. He wrote a letter saying, "What's happened?"
Wow.
And he was really concerned what he saw in his day. With all the electronic devices and the distractions we see today, H.G. Wells, by the way, who was a one-worlder, said that if you can get people in groups like in stadiums and watching this and watching that, you can control them, and we can set up our one-world government. Well, what do people do today? They're crowded in stadiums cheering. It's us versus them.
Tribes.
It's fiction. But people don't see it as fiction. They see it as real life. And what happens is, and Hitler said it well, if you can get people marching or get them in a group, they stop thinking. And we've stopped thinking.
Yep.
All the stuff we're seeing happening around us, we just say, oh, okay, and you flip the channel.
And we also accept that big lie that Hitler was talking about, too. If you lie big enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll believe it. They'll believe anything.
Well, thanks for your time, Mr. Whitehead. I hope to speak with you again very soon.
Thank you, sir.
And it was good speaking with you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You can also find us at gab.ai and support us at patreon.com/John Bowne or paypal.me/John Bowne. You can also find breaking news publications at dailynewscollective.com. Please leave any questions or comments below. Yes, we read and answer them.